ladies and gentlemen. We are live. It is January 26th, the great year of 2022. It is a Wednesday evening, the special edition of the Voice of Reason podcast. As always, my name is Sean Phillips, and I am joined alongside my two co-hosts, the great, the powerful Andy Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how are we both doing today?
Doing great, buddy. I don't
Outstanding.
I don't know how I'd want to throw on that good, great, and powerful stuff, but uh, you know. But the man is back with us this week. We missed him last week, and we're glad he's back
We
with us
did,
this
yeah.
week. He's got that that 3 hour commute's a little bit too much though, Travis. I think.
That's not.
What's crazy
No,
is,
it's
is
that
that
bad.
sounds like Chicago. It's a 3 hour commute and a 10-minute drive. What it would normally be,
Yeah, I
So
know, right?
it's like that in the city.
Yeah, but just to update, I we the COVID bug has hit us again. My son tested positive for what they believe is the
Uh-oh.
the Omicron variant. All
How's he feeling?
oh, he feels fine. All he has is a fever. He doesn't sick in his stomach. He's no respiratory, no anything. He wanted to go to school today. He's like, "Dad, I'm good to go." I said, "No, son, you're running 101 temp." He's like, "Dad, I'm good to go." I'm like, "No, son, you're not good to go." So but I mean,
Well, hopefully,
I mean, that's the only thing I mean, he sat up all day, did his homework, did all of his stuff. He was just like, "I'm good." I was like, "Well, I don't think
did
the
you let him play video games when he was done with homework?
oh yeah, of course. Don't don't be
What what
silly.
what kind of stuff does he play? Minecraft, Fortnite? What kind of games is he all the rave about?
Minecraft. He does this Apex Legends. This game is he's getting very he's actually competing now, which kind of course he whips me at everything, so it doesn't matter. But I still own the sports games, but he owns all the Call of Duty, the all that crap. He is the man with that stuff. I can't when it takes two opposable thumbs, forget it. I'm no much better than the apes. So you know
That is impressive. I mean, the fact that your son's still productive with 101 fever,
yeah.
that's
Well,
he's a champ. He's a
he
champ.
yeah. You know I'm pretty I'm pretty impressed myself. But he's like oh and then but I mean it's going around our school is it's going around our school and it's really it's pretty. I mean, but here's the weird thing: it's taking out more of the little kids than it is the high schoolers, and that's. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what's strange to me. So
Yeah, I know one of my schools today. I actually went there, was supposed to do a lunch visit, and it wasn't until I got to the school that they informed me, hey, we're not doing outside visitors for the foreseeable future. So it looks like a lot of schools are starting to kind of get
yeah,
shut down and
yes,
change things and do things. So,
we had.
buckle up.
Here we
It
go.
is it
Yep.
is not a ride we're getting off anytime soon, but thankfully I spoke with my dad recently. It sounds like he just got his booster, so I'm assuming my mom hopefully just did the same thing as well. So for them, they're boosted. They're hopefully doing well, and will stay well, especially since both of them are in jobs and where
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they're interacting with a lot of people in different spaces. So
It was. It was.
Man, I got mine
Go ahead, Travis.
Saturday. I
You're.
got my
You're.
booster shot Saturday. It
how'd you
kicked
feel
my
afterwards?
ass.
Oh.
I woke up. So I got it done that morning at Bowling Green Walmart of all places. Um, and then,
Yes,
well, here's the
sir.
thing. So if you didn't know this, COVID's treated a little bit differently out here in Chicago than it is in Bowling Green, Missouri.
Yeah, it's a popular
So trying
thing.
to get like a next day appointment for a COVID shot is impossible here or like any of the surrounding areas, like even like the suburbs.
Really.
But of course, Bowling Green Walmart, I mean, you can just show up and people aren't necessarily lining up to get the shot there. So I got my shot that morning and I went to bed at like, I don't know, 9 or 10. I woke up at 12 and I was shivering so bad from a fever.
Wow.
And it woke her up and she had to put a wet rag on me and everything. I mean,
Wow.
I haven't had a fever that bad in a long
What did
time.
so? What was your fever?
We didn't even do the temperature, but I mean, I was to the point I was
When you're
damn
doing,
near hallucinating.
I was going to say, when you're doing the cold sweats, you're in the 102, 103 range. So
Oh, it was.
that's
I
bad.
haven't, like I said, it was. We almost went to uh, ER or something like that. It was
Wow.
bad, but I mean, woke up the next morning with it by around, I don't know, by noon next day I was fine. But man, that was a ride.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny with Bryson. So Janine's had it twice, and the second time she and I both had it, and they tested. He tested negative. We tested him three. We tested both the kids 3 times while we had COVID. Never got it. I mean, Bryson was on the couch with me playing video games. I mean, he was as close as me to my screen, and nothing. And now, I mean, we think that he got. I don't know if he got it from. I don't know if he got it from a from school or where he got it from. I have no idea where he got it from. So, but
Well,
anyway,
aren't they saying Omicron's more transmissible? It's
yes,
just not as
right, right,
not as hard.
yeah. And I
I guess that makes sense then.
well, and a lot of the universities, I don't know. I heard, so I'm assuming, Sean, you probably know more about this than I do. I guess Mizzou is back in full force, is what I heard. Columbia College is going back, I think, next, or it may have been this Monday. And we had Sean Yates on here, and by the way, Sean Yates is ready to come back on. But Sean Yates, he goes to Wash U, and he said Wash U is requiring everybody to get a test before they even come back, before he leaves, and before he takes up permanent residence back on campus again. He's got to go through the whole gambit of test and all that other stuff. So
Yeah, as far as the schools in this area, like colleges, I'm not 100% sure. My Columbia College classes are online, so I don't get any updates about COVID or anything like that. But who knows? Who knows? Anywhere we're living in the world, it could say, "Hey, you have a virtual class. Make sure you guys put your mask on and socially distance while you're sitting at your house." So
right, right,
you never know. You never know.
right.
But no,
But
I'd have to look. I couldn't tell you. Like, there's a couple universities around here, like in Jeff City and in Fulton, and I don't know what
yeah,
any of their regs are. Again, with it being Jeff City, in comparison to like St. Louis, like when I go to St. Louis, everywhere I go, stores, even in like Chesterfield, I mask up, wear a mask,
right.
all that stuff. But I know a couple places that I've been to in St. Louis that require a vaccine card. I think that is to the discretion of
This
the
of the
business
place,
owner.
right, right.
So those aren't necessarily required, but I do know that like Blues games, you either have to provide a business card or before you go in, if you're unvaxxed, you have to do a rapid test there
Wow. At the
at the
site.
facilities.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Wow.
yeah. So each place is doing things differently, and I know that like some places kind of wiggle the rules. Like I know that it sounds like the Super Bowl will be in LA, even
Yeah.
though
Well,
by having it in LA, it kind of supersedes what they have put into place. But I think that they have kind of adjusted how they want to do things, so that way they will have the Super Bowl in LA, even though it kind of doesn't go with
well,
the law and regulation that's out there.
I tell you what. So watching these football, well, I guess they didn't. The Rams didn't play. The Rams played. Where did the Rams? Did they play? Where they played
Raymond
it?
James
They played at Raymond
outside in
James. Yeah,
Tampa.
so they played at Raymond James. And every playoff game that I saw this last weekend, I mean, it looked like everyone was, standing room only, packed to capacity. And they actually brought that comment up on I think it was the CBS broadcast, that they actually brought that point up, is that, for the Rams home game, the next Rams home game, the NFC Championship, they are limiting tickets to Los Angeles citizens only. I don't know if I misheard that, or have you heard that?
No, so originally, whenever the tickets were released, yeah, they were. Was it would ping your IP and see, and they were limiting tickets to people within the greater Los Angeles area. And then I here's the I have not looked enough to see if like that regulation was for like, we're going to try to keep COVID out of our city or keep it in our city
Yeah,
amongst our own citizens,
yeah.
or whether or not it was like, hey, we're trying to give the Rams that home field
Well,
because San Francisco is a few hours drive away, and they travel. San Francisco fans they travel pretty
I mean,
well.
that's only what is it? Is that like a three? Is that you said so? It's like a 3 or 4 hour drive, right?
Yeah, it's just on the coast.
Right.
So, but I know like the last Rams home game that they had against San Francisco, it was a pretty good split of 49ers fans and Rams fans. So I think it was like 2 days, or it was like the day, 2 days after they had announced that, Ticketmaster removed that and formally apologized and
Well, when I saw,
whatnot. So
yeah,
now it's no longer that way, but it
okay,
was. Yeah,
okay.
absolutely
Well,
was.
when I saw that, I was like, can they do that? Because somebody, I saw that on, I saw it on my Twitter feed, and I heard it on CBS last week. They said that I was like,
Mhm.
there's no, they can't pull that off. I don't see how that's I know the NFL wouldn't want to do that. So
Well, it's California. They kind of do their own thing out there.
right. But what a great weekend for football. I'm sorry, Sean. I'm so sorry. Your special teams let you down again. But what, I mean, I tell you what, the NFL got all these games right as far as who they matched up against people against. I don't like even though I do not like this overtime rule within football. Is I don't know where you guys are at on this rule, but what's the so the official rule is what? So it basically comes down to who's lucky on the flip of the coin.
The It used to be the NFL overtime rules used to be that whoever scored first won. So games would come down to, you drive 40 yards and kick a field goal, and that'd be the game. They changed it to the whoever gets the ball first. If they score a touchdown first, game is over. Whoever the first to score a touchdown is. Now, if the team is to get the ball first and go and score a field goal, the other team has to at least score a field goal in order to keep the game going. But if a team gets the ball and they score a touchdown on the first drive, game's over. So
I saw I saw your face of frustration there, Sean. Would you like to input your um?
I don't really need to look. My dislike of, not even going to go into the details about the team, has stemmed from years,
Oh yeah,
years and years and years and years of
you and I've been going at this for years, so
disgust
I understand.
of the local fans and how they treat individuals.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
Um, the organization, the collusion amongst the owner
Yep.
to get rid of the Rams out of St.
Yep.
Louis, amongst his billionaire buddies. Regardless, I don't care for the organization.
Yep.
But if we put all that aside, if we put it all aside, I could not believe, and I won't even ramble about this for too long, but for those that didn't watch the Bills Chiefs final 13 seconds of the regular game, here's if you're not a football fan, let me just break it down. To put it into perspective, the Chiefs had 13 seconds to get the ball about 50, 60 yards to put themselves in position to score a field goal. Now, I want you to just try to imagine this, right? You would think that in order to prevent, with 13 seconds left, to stop some people from getting downfield 50, 60 yards, you would want to press. You would want to probably play midfield to prevent them from getting that chunk.
They're doing
for whatever reason, the Bills' defensive coordinator and head coach decided, screw it. Even though even though on the previous drive that the Chiefs had the football, Tyreek Hill scored a 74-yard touchdown off of a slant. Off of a slant in the middle of the field. So then, and so here's what again, I don't want to deep dive because I'll just make myself mad, and it legitimately ruined my weekend. Ruined my weekend.
Oh man, I wanted to text you so bad.
But if you take the fastest player in the NFL, in Tyreek Hill, and you have 13 seconds. First off, the first mistake was the Bills kicked the ball through the end zone when they gave their kickoff.
Why not squib kick that? Why not?
Well, here's my thing. Why would you not? Who do you trust more? Your defense to stop Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, or your special teams to stop their kick returner?
Yeah.
They put their faith in the wrong group.
Right.
And then not only that, they gave their group the wrong tools. They dropped them back. So here was my argument was, look, if you're going to give them 13 seconds, they have all 3 timeouts. Who gives a flying fuck if they throw the ball to the outside? Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares if they get the ball? And because they're going to have 2 plays.
Right.
Yeah, they're going to have 2 plays. They're going to call a timeout. Whether or not they do it in the middle of the field or the sideline, they're either going to get out of bounds and stop the play or call a timeout. They're going to do it. They've got 13 seconds. Now, if you have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, okay, one of the best route running tight ends in the NFL, bar none, and then the fastest wide receiver in the NFL, why you would not press them at the line? You have the first 5 yards.
Hang them up. Yep.
Now, again, even if it's 2 seconds to hold back Tyreek Hill, it could be a second and a half. And then instead of dropping all of your players 20 yards into coverage, this man is the fastest player in the NFL. By letting him have 5 yards is all he needed to get open for the pass because no one pressed him on the line.
Mm-hmm.
He then had an open 20 yards to just sprint.
To do what he
there
wanted
was
to.
No one.
Right.
The worst defense I've ever seen in my life.
And they were the number one rated defense in the NFL.
You deserve to lose when you do stupid shit like that.
Yep.
And it's the only unfortunate thing is, and I'll get off this and I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But in life, they tell you good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people.
Yes.
In the case of Frank Clark, Tyreek Hill,
all those guys,
Eric Buthini, all of these sexual abusers, they're domestic abusers, continue to have continued success. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. That's all I got. That's all I got to say.
And
I'm off the soapbox. I hate them with every ounce of my being.
I know you do. I know. And I will say this though, aside from that game, I have enjoyed. I will say this. I have enjoyed this. I've watched more playoff games this year than I usually just watch the Chiefs or the Bears, and I also watch the 49ers because I'm a kind of a closet fan of the 49ers because I like Jimmy G, and I've enjoyed watching these playoffs. Last week, not so much because there was 4 blowout games last week, and then this week was every game came down either to a touchdown or to a field goal, so they were all great games. But my biggest complaint has been this in a number of different games, and I've actually seen it more as a Bears fan than I have as a Chiefs fan. Not when overtime comes down to the luck of a flip of a coin, and I wish the NFL would get with a program like college football does. Give it to them on the 20. And say, okay, you or whatever. Is it on the 20 or 50? I don't even know where it's at. But it's like you either get the first down or you get the touchdown. If you don't, you're screwed. We keep on going
it's literally sudden death. It's sudden death is what it is. And it's you get an opportunity. If you don't capitalize and the other team does, they win. But if you score and the other team scores, cool. Let's run that shit back again. And That is how it should be. There should not be ties in the NFL.
No, I hate that too. This isn't soccer. This isn't soccer.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll tell you what. Let's get on the train because this past week was,
holy cow,
aside from sports and everything, was quite the interesting week We're seeing a lot of activity across the globe. That's kind of heating things up. Things are getting interesting, and are ironically, I will say this. When we do get into this topic about, although I like Travis, like we were speaking about earlier, I do think that our president misunderstood or wasn't comprehending exactly what the Fox correspondent said to him for that, got that response from Biden. But what was funny to me was the amount of people that I saw on Facebook and Twitter going like, "Oh, what a disrespectful president, hot mic, oh my gosh, this is," and I'm like, did you forget? Did you forget who we had for 4 years and the kind of stuff that he would shoot off the cuff? And people were like, "Oh, I like listening to him talk because he talks like I would talk, just off the cuff and swearing and doing." And it was just like, oh my god.
I gotta go off of that. What you just said about people being angry about him doing that. So, for those who don't know, there's this satire news page called the Babylon Bee.
Mm-hmm.
I probably said it wrong, but
that's right. That's right.
Going off of that, they had one article named saying Biden approval rating up after being mean to journalists like real president.
There you go.
Made me think of that.
What's funny is I'm on their Instagram page right now.
No, it was a weird.
Their last post is so funny. Boy told he can't have ice cream until he eats all of his McDonald's.
The Babylon Bee.
They have great stuff, and I'm sure you guys saw the Kyle Rittenhouse one with Ukraine.
Oh,
yes.
They
pull it up. Ukraine invites Kyle Rittenhouse to guard their border.
Saturday.
Could you do us a solid and come guard our border? Bring your AR-15. LOL. Thanks.
You gotta love satire, man.
Oh man, yeah.
Great stuff. But no, that was a weird. Because actually my wife's the one who sent me that. Like, look at what Biden did. I think the journalist's question was, do you consider the rise of inflation to be a political liability? And I think what he was, and you guys, if you interpret this different, let me know. I think what the journalist was asking, like, do you think that this was, or he said it was a political party liability, something of that works basically as saying, like, do you think that the rise of inflation is a failure on the government?
Let me play. I don't know if you guys won't be able to hear, but the folks at home, let me just play this clip just real quick here. Let me play this.
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, was it? I don't know if it's taken out of context. I mean, you call somebody a stupid son of a bitch. That's pretty.
Do you think he realized that the mic was still on?
No.
The press conference was over. They were walking out.
But that stuff happens all the time. I mean, Joe Biden, and we talked a little bit about this. Well, we actually wanted to get your input on this week too, Travis. Is one of the things that we looked at and we talked about last week, and we can revisit this again because I think we do want to hear what you have to say about this. But I mean, Joe Biden has worked himself into such a place now because of. Last week we had talked about how, we talked about this, and we're going to visit this a little bit later on in March. But the Fed's talking about raising interest rates. Inflation is up the highest rates in 40 years. The whole Ukraine situation, the whole thing about how COVID is basically. I mean. Where do you place Biden and the Democrats at right now? If you're a Biden advisor, what are you saying to the president, or what is your thoughts about if this is the guy you're working for?
There's a lot to this question. For starters, I would say, no matter what political party is in office or like who has the majority, they're going to get the blame for any of the issues going on. Naturally so. But, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that's going on the past year, especially especially since he's taken office too. My God. We'll get into the whole interest rate rise later. I mean,
Right.
that was kind of inevitable. I mean, they're going to have to do it eventually. And I think this whole issue started well before even Biden came into office too. I mean, if you really look at the history of when the excessive money printing even started and stuff like that. Yeah, what do you tell them? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I think Russia is really testing our leadership right now.
Well, go ahead and
not just Russia.
I was going to say, go ahead and go into that if you want to, Travis. Go ahead.
I've been tracking it pretty good. I mean, I've been pretty glued to the whole Ukraine situation. I think if you just look at since our new president's been in office, look at the moves that not only Russia has made, but China as well.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Trump was in office when we originally were having issues back in, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 2016 when there was stuff going on in Ukraine and we actually sent advisors over there and stuff like that? It was when Trump just got elected, am I right? Or was that something before?
I know there was a huge I can't remember if that original spud with the Ukraine was in end of 2015 or 2016. I know that I went to Poland in 2016 that summer, and that was like off the cusp kind of, we just got activated, they sent us over there kind of thing, like, and it was supposed to be a joint training operation, but truthfully it was a show of force because in the matter of a few weeks / months shuffled many different NATO organizations and put us all there. So it was, I want to say, it was either end of 2015 or 2016. It had to have been.
So I bookmarked a page about the whole history of this thing. And what I'm reading here is saying in 24, you have these pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine. It's called the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, which I'm assuming is eastern regions. Yeah, they're declaring their independence from Kyiv, which is the capital of the Ukraine, and they brokered a deal in 2015 with the help of France and Germany, and like you guys have said, since then there's been these ceasefire, what do you want to call them, violations. And so this is maybe we should say what is Russia's big pull? What do you guys see as Russia's big pull for I have an answer, but I want to hear what you guys say. What do you think why is the big draw for the Ukraine? What is at stake here?
Thank you. I don't know if so I don't know what natural resources or anything like that Ukraine has, but I'm not aware.
Wasn't part of it? Didn't the Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union?
Yes. So when the Soviet Union fell,
yes, it was.
Right. And
I'm seeing.
Go ahead, Travis.
What I'm seeing is something very, very similar to happen in the mid to late 1930s with Germany and their countries next to it. What was the first country? Was it Austria or Yugoslavia that they said that was originally German land?
That was the Rhineland. Yes.
The Rhineland, correct.
Mm-hmm. And then the Rhineland, and then the Sudetenland.
And it was this, and then they said, "All right, that's it. It's just this." And I said, "No, now we're going to take this place because that's ours too." And people know the story, and to me, this is eerily familiar, and I would question that this is, quite frankly, the Soviet Union again under new management, just a different face and different name and everything. And I think people should, if you're not paying attention to this situation, you should. And if you don't know history, you should learn about it. when a country is threatening to go ahead. I don't
No, I
want to
was
ramble here, but
no. You're on the right track. I mean, because a lot of this has been, you bring up there's a lot of, and I'm bringing up a map here so the folks who are watching live can kind of get a view of what we're talking about here. With Ukraine, there is so the Ukraine is at the southern end of what I call the block that the Soviet Union lost. Okay, so the Soviet Union originally, so what you had was Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, the Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and I know I'm forgetting another one in there. There's another
it was
one.
that whole region of all the smaller
Right.
countries.
And so
Yeah.
and so Russia, even though Russia itself, and if people don't know what Russia takes up, if you look at Russia on the map, they take up 12 time zones. Okay, you could stick the United States in there almost three, and you could stick the continental United States inside Russia almost 3.5 times. Okay, just to give you the massive amount. And so when you look at Ukraine, and I'm trying to find a good map here, but when you look, here we go. When you look at Ukraine on this map, and you say, okay, so what's the draw? Why do they want this? Ukraine is sitting on coal and oil. Okay, now Russia, before all this went down, Russia has a pipeline that goes through the Ukraine. Okay, but they believe that their rights. I mean, you are right, Travis, when you say it. I mean, it's deja vu all over again. To quote, I forget what baseball player that was, but to say that it's a problem, that it's going to be a problem, yeah. And people need to understand that the Russians have, in the last week, went from having 90,000 troops there, and I listened to a news brief on Tuesday that said they have 120,000 troops there now. And to listen to Vladimir Putin, he goes on record as saying, we have no intent of invading Ukraine. Okay, then what the heck? Why do you have 120,000 troops parked there? And they say this is just annual. We've been doing these war games and blah blah blah. But why are you parked right there on the eastern border? I mean, how would we take it? I mean, we'd probably laugh at it, but how would we take it if the Canadians get a full on mount, and they're sitting up there in the probably where one of our weakest border spots, let's say Montana, and they've got 120,000 troops parked up there. What does that look like? I mean, you don't have to be the head checkout. Right. You don't have to be the head checkout clerk at Walmart to figure out that that's a full on threat.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's not just the bodies that they have there. I mean, they have put surface to air missiles in Belarus. Yep. They have moved their naval ships towards Ukrainian shores in like the Black Sea, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
So,
and NATO has in the who was it? They said the British were moving battleships into that area as well.
I think
it was the British. I've got it in the article, but there is
what I know. Several of our other NATO allies are moving resources in that direction, and I know part of it is that they're beefing up security in like Romania and Poland and all those other Eastern European nations like that. Yeah.
Well, and
I saw Finland today. I saw they were Finland's armed forces has just stepped up training big time in response to what's going on, preparing for this. And Russia, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, I saw an article saying they just did like a show of force exercise showing like their firepower with their artillery and stuff like that, like right there on the border too. So it's inevitable. It's a ticking time bomb is what it is.
Well, so what's Putin's play going to be? Because when you look at this is I've had kids I have kids who are genuinely concerned, and they say, okay, is this going to be something that we're going to get drafted? I was like, well, first of all, we haven't had drafts since Vietnam. I said it's not going to be something like that, but people are genuinely, my kids are seeing this, and we talk about the news all the time, and they're, is this going to be nuclear war? Is this going to be? And I'm telling kids this, and I'm not to be cocky or anything. I said, but this was my childhood all the time. During the Cold War, this was my childhood all the time because we were always right there. And they call it brinkmanship. Brinkmanship is having it right there at the edge to see which guy blinks first. And for me in my childhood, the brinkmanship occurred over the city of Berlin. It was always about Berlin. Ronald Reagan was right there in front of that wall. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. It was, and Berlin was always going to be the breaking point. And now we're seeing, and Putin's an old KGB throwback.
Yep.
So this guy does have the balls to do this. He has. I do not look at him lightly. I think he has the balls to do this.
I think he does too. And here's what scares me is I think when Russia does it, not if, when Russia does this, I don't think they're going to be met with adversity other than Ukraine. I don't see the West stepping up. I see sanctions and maybe like show of force, but I don't see any like direct military action from the West. I don't see it. I don't have that faith and confidence in the West right now.
I would like to
because I haven't seen a strong enough response that's going to really kick this in the butt. I have not. In my opinion, based off the articles I've read, what I've been seeing, I haven't seen our president, for one, really make a strong stance on this. Like I saw something about, we're going to have 8,500 troops on standby. They're not going to Ukraine, one, and two, 8,500 troops is your response to 120,000.
No.
And that's just a low estimate of troops that are about to invade an entire country. That is such a weak response to me. And they keep saying they want to do a diplomatic solution, and there's a lot of politics at play here.
Okay, but
I think we're to the point that we're damn near past that. This has to be nipped in the bud. Like, I don't know how. I don't know. I'm not a politician, but we need to make a stronger stance than, we got 8,500 troops on standby.
Well,
that's pretty weak response from the U.S., in my opinion.
Well, so here is for the folks who are, and you guys might want to pull it up on if you've got your phone nearby. But this is a map that this is from this week in the Sun, in the one of the British newspapers. I think it's out of London, called The Sun. And what you see here, they're showing it looks like there are 3 regions here. Of course, Crimea was annexed by Russia from the Ukraine in 2014. We talked about that earlier. And then they have the Donbass region, which is occupied by pro-Russian rebels since 2014. Right now, they're showing, and they have some images of these tanks. They show these tanks some of the images from on the ground that they have, and the troop buildup, and what it looks to be I would say is probably, they don't have the name. It's Varinza. This is videos allegedly showing Russian tanks massing in a field outside the city. And that, that looks to be probably about 200 miles from the Ukraine. And this is, so when the United States responds, though, we've got to, this is the kind of thing that frightens me, because it goes back to what you just said, Travis. 8,500 versus 120,000. Is that just a? I don't want to say a political.
And I don't even think that they're going to go to Ukraine. They're probably going to go to Poland to do like a show of force exercise, or they're going to go to Germany. Or
now, Sean, when you were in Poland, how many guys did you say was in Poland when you were there?
a couple thousand. It wasn't no 120,000. I'll tell you that. And we would come and go in rotations. So I mean, there were a rough guesstimate would be several thousand spread out across Poland during that time while I was there, and then I know the numbers rolled back, but I know that we kept units there. Like there's active duty components now that are there. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I really don't know.
What do you guys think about the? So the other thing that I heard from Vladimir Putin is he's claiming this isn't a NATO issue because, first of all, Ukraine's not a member of NATO. NATO, just for a brief history lesson, NATO,
They're trying to be.
Yeah, they're trying to be. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was formed during the Cold War in response to Russian buildup, communist buildup throughout Europe, and primarily around, like I said, Berlin. And so, and then in response, the Soviets formed what was called the Warsaw Pact. And obviously the Warsaw Pact is no more, but you have NATO. We used to have this group called CETO, which is the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. But that is since disbanded. But, Putin's claim, this isn't a NATO issue. This is a Russian. And again, I like your analogy you used earlier. This is Germany and Rhineland Part 2.
Hitler said the same things.
Right. And what was bad about it was Hitler. We kept appeasing Hitler. And appeasement, guys, is a dangerous game to play. And what really concerns me about Joe Biden is it seems to me that we're going to see a major appeasement play here. It's like, okay, if we give him, because we've already let him have Crimea. And I think, if I remember correctly, I read somewhere this week, I think there was like 3,500, 4,000 civilian, not military, but civilian deaths in the taking of the Crimea back in 2014. So this is not going to be, when he goes in there and he's going to go in with 120,000 troops, and you've got tanks, and you've got boats, and you've got planes, and you've got all of this stuff. And why this isn't being put more out there on the media, it's still, second page news behind COVID. I mean, this is something that I think people need to really be looking at.
I agree. And I think that, your students were asking, should we be worried about this? Here's what I said. If Russia takes Ukraine and there's no response, and they start saying, now we're going to take the next place, I'd say, if there weren't red flags already, that should be history repeating itself lesson right there. That is a total red flag. And we made a mistake not making us a harder stand from the get-go. And personally, that's what I think is going to happen. We're going to let this happen. They're going to take Ukraine. And then it's going to say, well, now we want this place. And this is a Russian issue.
Well, and so again, but to put other things into perspective, and this is another thing that really hasn't been talked. Putin has got another problem right now in Kazakhstan. That was the other stand I was trying to think of, Kazakhstan. Yeah. And this has been within the last 3 weeks. They've had deadly protest and stuff going on down there, and troops from Russia, let me say it this way, from a Russian-led military alliance deployed there to help contain the unrest. So Putin is already making power plays down in Kazakhstan, which, again, was an independent republic of the former Soviet Union. So he's sending a force down there to help with, that's just, to me, that's just kind of putting your foot in the door. And he's looking, he looks in these border regions. He's looking in this Donbass region, which is in southeast Ukraine, and he's looking at this and he's saying, well, these guys want to be a part of us. So we should just go in and take the whole thing. Now, the Donbass region would be something like saying, and if we were to compare it to the United States, it would be saying, okay, the Southeast United States wants to be part of Cuba. Well, Cuba gets to invade. I mean, it's that kind of mentality, you know.
Yeah.
But to get back to the other thing, though, too, and I was looking for this in my notes that I had here, and I found that the other issue revolves around the energy supply. So you were asking about this earlier, Travis. The Ukraine views what's called the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that connects Russian gas supplies directly to Germany. That goes through the Ukraine. So we gave, because of our frayed relationship with Germany, and this goes back to the Trump era. I can't think of the prime minister of Germany right now. Her name's escaping me.
I can't think of her name either, but I know you're talking about.
But oh God, that's gonna kill me now. But Trump and her didn't get along, and Joe Biden has allowed kind of the free pass, to
Olaf Scholz.
Yes. Okay. And so to let this happen, they're saying, okay, and a lot of analysts are being concerned about this because they're saying, okay, so now you're going to make the Europeans more dependent upon Russian gas. Okay. And to me, if I'm an outsider and I'm looking at this, it almost looks like Russia's trying to buy friends. Hey, we've got this pipeline running through the Ukraine. You don't want that to be. I mean, they're going to levy this as a weapon against the NATO forces.
Oh, 100%.
And there's been so the Trump administration had put sanctions against the company behind Nord Stream 2, okay? And so then in May of, I think it was May of last year, the Biden administrations waived those sanctions, okay, which gave the green light. Hey, here's your, we're going to let you do whatever. We don't have, and like I said, they wanted to rebuild relationships with Germany, let this happen. And then in November, the U.S. imposed new sanctions on Russia, on this Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And, there's some U.S. senators right now, mainly Republicans, who are saying we need to tighten down even more on this guy. Because if we allow him to have this leverage with this pipeline, some of the European nations may start, to scratch their head and say, okay, are we really going to benefit from this? And I think that this is the main reason why it's not going more, balls to the wall, moving troops and being sterner talk. I mean, because when you're dangling, cheaper oil, I mean, and when you think about it, and Travis, you might know about this more than I do, but I remember when you guys remember our German foreign exchange students we had there at Clopton. I forgot which one it was, but we had one who came in and and it was during the Obama administration. And he said, "You Americans are complaining so much about $3 a gallon gas when we're paying the equivalent of $6 a liter in Germany."
Yeah, I remember that.
Who was that? I can't remember that kid's name, but
It was Nicholas, right?
Moritz or Nicholas?
Yeah, it was Nicholas, I think. And he's like, he's like, you Americans are. And I remember it was in government class. He said, "You Americans are so petty because you guys are complaining about $3 and we're paying $6 a liter for the gas that you're supplying to us." And so now the Russians have this. I'm sure that they could probably deliver it a lot cheaper than we can to them.
And they probably will.
And they will.
And I don't know. For me, I'm a big fan of history. That's why I'm trying to get a bachelor's degree in history. And just seeing all this stuff going on, it is so reminiscent of World War II. Like the stuff going on in Europe and the stuff going on in Asia right now too. That's not even getting discussed. So it's, for someone like me, I pay close attention to this stuff, and it's I think more people need to as well.
Well, let me read this quote, and this kind of goes with what I just said. This is a direct quote from ABC earlier this week. It says analysts and U.S. lawmakers have raised concerns that the Nord Stream 2 will increase European dependence on Russian gas and could allow Moscow to selectively target countries such as the Ukraine with energy cutoffs without broader disruption to European supplies. Bypassing Eastern European countries also means those nations would be deprived of lucrative transit fees Russia would otherwise pay. So, I mean, Putin knows what he's doing. And, you know, he has the power to say we can put Ukraine, we can put Belarus, we can put Lithuania in the dark, and we will put them in the dark. So, I mean, if you do, and basically what we're doing right now is just a 30,000 feet flyover of this. But this is there. Again, I keep on coming back to why aren't we paying more attention to this? This is the verge of everybody from before my generation, our grandparents, our great grandparents. This is the very thing that we fought against. It's just under a different label now. You know, we fought the communists in such a way, you know, we looked at who the Russians were. We looked at the Russians as this group of power-hungry men. And it's labeled as this thing that it's for the people. And I'm sure in Putin's Russia right now, they're parading them in the streets. They're talking about, I mean, there's probably it's probably nationalism on crack in Russia right now. And so with this, he's making, you know, look how much better we are than the West. And Travis, I can't remember if it was Travis or Sean a while ago that said, you know, they're having these parades. They're. I mean, to me, this is just like the '80s, when every March in every October when they celebrate the Russian Revolution, they would parade these, you know, these ICBMs. They would tow them down the street on their trailers, and they would show off everything. And you're seeing these same kind of images coming out of Russia today. Yes, communism may have fell by label, but the same players, now they were the young players back in the 1980s. Now they're the guys, they're the crusty old men who are in control. And these are the guys who are pulling the shots. And to me, they want, I may be speaking totally out of my butt here, but they want redemption for the 80s. In my opinion, these guys want redemption for the 80s, and they're trying to turn. And when I read all this, when I see that Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, these guys are trying to turn back the clock to 1989 and to get exactly what they had. And Ukraine is just the first piece. When they can find these pro-Russian pockets in these different regions, and these people we want to be a part of the greatest country in Europe. We don't want to be lonely little Ukraine. We don't want to be lonely little Belarus. We want to be part of Russia. And I don't know, I'm on a soapbox here, but as a guy who lived through the last days of the Cold War, it frightens the living crap out of me.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Where do you see this conflict escalating to with developing nations, newly industrialized nations like Iraq, Afghanistan, some African nations that we, you know, might have conflict with? Those are the typical, you know, wars of the 2000s that we've kind of seen. Like, the kind of war that we had in Afghanistan and Iraq is not the same kind of war that we're going to have with Russia. So with that said, where does the conflict go from here? Do you guys think that we are just expanding and extending the Cold War? Do you think that if there is an escalation, how high does this escalation go?
I think if Ukraine falls and they're met with no opposition, I think we have a serious, serious problem. And I think without, I'm not trying to be like a doomsday or nothing, but I think if Ukraine falls the way I think it's going to fall, that is going to be the catalyst for a third world war.
Agreed.
That's what I think.
When you look at, so let's rewind real quick. In 1939, and so we've mentioned the Rhineland, which was a former region of Germany that was taken after World War I. The Sudetenland, which was part of Czechoslovakia, which was Germany's southern border. And Hitler said to the people at the conference at the Munich conference, he said, "You give me this, and I'll go away." And then he annexed Austria. And we did nothing. And when they set their sights on Poland and they made the deal, the non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, and the British and the French said, we will intervene if and it was, again, both Hitler and Stalin knew the level, what it was going to look like when they were going to back it up. And the French and the British were just throwing out brave words. And so when Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, and they walked in and they took a few of the major cities. And then we went through, they went through Poland, and then we went through from October of 1939 until April of 1940, it actually called it, instead of the Blitzkrieg, they called it the Sitzkrieg because there was nothing going on. They said, okay, so he's done. When appeasement is the policy, and I'm not saying that we're appeasing him, but if you sit back and continue to let this gathering amount of troops occur, and you don't, like Travis said earlier, if you don't do a show of force, and I mean, I don't know what that's going to look like, if that's like testing off, lighting
a serious
off.
one.
Yeah, I mean, moving a complete battle group, not just a couple of battleships, but I mean a complete battle group from, I don't know, say start moving them from the Persian Gulf and get them around there, something like that. Get them in position. Get them where we're going to say, look, you launch your 120,000 troops, we can reduce them to ash in a matter of minutes. I mean, you've got to, you can't just, like you said, Travis, and we beat this dead horse, but 8,500 troops is, that's fighting a forest fire with a water gun. You're not going to get anything accomplished with that.
And I would caution people as well. Even though all this is going on, and this is like the one thing that's kind of getting headlines, not quite as COVID yet, and it should get more, do not forget about China and the Pacific. Pay attention to what China's doing while all this stuff goes on. Because I guarantee if all the focus goes to Russia, Ukraine, or something else, there's going to be a move there. This is speculation, but I really feel like this is history repeating itself.
Oh, we're seeing it, yeah. When in the Korean War, when China told us to back off, when we were getting close to the Yellow River, and the Chinese told us to back off, and Mao said, I will launch a 1,000,000-man army I will basically the hand of God down upon you. And MacArthur's like, well, let's go get him. And Mao just let out, I think it was like 200,000, and I say just 200,000 of the troops come across the Yellow River. And those guys pushed them all the way back to from the border of China and North Korea all the way back to the demilitarized zone with the 38th parallel in a matter of weeks. Imagine what they can do now. And I'm sure that I bet you they've probably got I would venture to say that China probably has more than 1,000,000-man army now.
Oh yeah,
And
I guarantee that.
you weigh all of this in, and I'm sure that China's watching this patiently. And like you said, Travis, I didn't even think about that. I mean, this is, to me, this is, we've seen situations like this before. We saw it in World War II when, World War II was what they called the Balkan powder keg. Everything was just right there. You know, you had, and we're seeing the same things again. Imperialism. Russia wants their territory back. We're seeing nationalism, which is, this is
China too with Taiwan.
right. In China, exactly. China with Taiwan. And we're seeing this growth of nationalism. We're going to, and militarism. We're seeing the buildup of these military forces. And all it's going to take is just one little spark. And who knows where it's going to come at. And I told my kids the other day, I said, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
Unfortunately, yes, it's going to be a snowball effect.
Yep. Okay, I'm depressed enough now. Let's move on.
Let's end it on a good note. I know a fellow Army National Guard recruiter for all you patriots out there. His name's Sean Phillips. Sean, you want to give him your spiel?
Pass the ASVAB and don't be fat. That's all I got to say. That's all I need.
That's it, folks.
Literally.
Good night.
Look,
Yeah.
See, here you go.
No,
I am no longer right here.
I will say, for, not even like a recruiting spiel, but I can say it based off of how I interact with teenagers every single day. And I've got a lot of respect for a lot of the teenagers that I do see. I do think that there's a bad rap that a lot of teenagers get, and you see teenagers on the daily. I can say there has been a cultural shift in how teenagers today do things, even when I was a teenager not that long ago. I don't necessarily always think it's a bad thing. I'm not like one of those, my generation was better than your generation thing. However, it does mean that because there is a generational shift, and a very rapid one at that, a very rapid generational shift, it does scare me for the future of the United States military and all assets and facets of not just the capabilities of a soldier, the responsibilities of a soldier, of a Marine, of a sailor, but the technology that we have readily available to us, the manufacturing abilities that we readily have available to us, the firepower that we would readily have available to us. When we have certain ideologies take over our office, the first people to take a big blunt of the negative effects of that is our military. Shrinking the military, making it more difficult for people to enlist, making it more difficult for people to serve, even if it is just part-time for their community, especially now, is dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. But unfortunately, due to some policies, due to some rule changes, they are making it more difficult for people to serve in our nation. And as our generation shifts and as people change and as young people come up, more and more and more and more and more are disqualified every single day and without ever having a chance for things that wouldn't have disqualified you back in the day. It is scary when we look at things that are happening in Russia. It is scary when we look at things that are happening in China. And I understand why parents are nervous. I understand why a lot of people are unsure, but it makes me very appreciative of those ones that step forward and take it on head on. So times are changing, and they're going to be interesting, and we all have a front row seat, so it'll be quite interesting to see how things change. But with that said, I do hope that your week, for our listeners, I hope you guys have enjoyed your week. I hope that we can sprinkle on a little bit of insight for your Thursday morning or your Friday, whenever you guys do get the chance to give this a listen. If you didn't listen to us live, but I hope you all enjoy your weekend. It should be a good one. I hope the weather is nice where you're at, or starts to warm up, but not too hot, as we know that's a whole other issue we haven't tackled yet.
We're going to deal with that before long.
But gentlemen, before we sign out of here, is there anything you guys would like to add for our conversation or to our guests before we go?
Do you want to think we actually had a very nice? I was looking at the results from last week's show. We had a nice little. I think we struck a nerve last week. We had a nice little spike last week of. We actually had one of our highest viewing audiences on YouTube last week. I was quite impressed with that. Thank you guys. I know that some folks are sharing. Because when you see spikes like that, you know that you guys are listening and you like the content. We appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. It's always nice, and again, make sure if you guys do find yourself having time, please like, please share, please subscribe, do all those good things. Again, find us anywhere you guys do listen to your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can listen to us, but no longer Neil Young. Neither here nor there. We just, But again, check us out, please. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, right here. Again, I'll repeat it again. Facebook, The Voice of Reason Podcast. Again, just like, share, subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend. Again, as we grow, the better our content gets, the more that we're able to put out there, the more we're able to put forth. So again, from the bottom of our hearts, I do thank you all for giving us a listen. And we'll be back shortly. We'll be back hopefully on Monday. If anything changes, we will keep you updated. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their week. Enjoy your weekend.
See you guys.
See you.